Guys, please here. Thanks for coming, and we are welcome if you're new. Please subscribe. I'm very happy to be joined by a certain David Bilsby today because we're doing a bit of a it's not a Norwich related video today, bit of a different one. We try and keep the variety going on here. It's about Harry Kane and some news that came out last week. First of all, how are you doing, David?
Um, I was fine until we kicked off against Man United, and then he's all just gone. And then I was fine before we kicked off in the game before that as well. So yeah, me myself, I'm absolutely fantastic. As a Spurs fan, not so great.
That's good. That's good to hear that you're okay. That's yourself. That's great. So yeah, the news that came out, I think it might have been, I think it was last Friday, something like that. It was some news that I'm sure, obviously, I'm not a Tottenham fan. I was seeing this as a neutral, but I'm guessing it's going to be greeted by universal disappointment by Tottenham fans. Is that Harry Kane is thinking, considering he's running out of patience and considering leaving Tottenham if they don't achieve Champions League qualification. First of all, David, what are your thoughts of it overall?
I'm not surprised. I'm
Yeah.
surprised it's taken this long, if anything. I'm not surprised. I think it's been a long time coming, and I think ultimately the board and the owners are responsible for it more so than anything else.
Okay. So you think it's so out you're not really blaming him, the player, you're blaming more the club.
Yeah, 100. I mean, I look at the quality he's got. He walks into 99.9% of teams in Europe. Let's be realistic. And I look back at the season we lost the league to Leicester, and it was one or two players difference. I look at the season after when we finished second behind Chelsea. Again, one or two players difference, and the fact that Chelsea had no European football and they had no major injuries the entire season. We've had injury riddled issues for years, which rather than replacing the physios and looking into that side of things and why that's the cause, that's been left, and we have the same problems now. The squad has had. We sold Moussa Dembele in a year in which, all right, we never knew we were going to get to the Champions League, but we got to the Champions League final, and Trippier was right in saying that if we had a bit more control of the midfield, we create a few more chances, we'd probably beat Liverpool because we weren't. We weren't the worst team on the day. We just didn't have that final bit of quality. We sold one of the most important midfield players in the middle of the season and didn't replace him. And if I'm Harry Kane, I'm sitting there looking. I'll be honest with you. A few summers ago, when he signed a new 6-year contract, I was sat there looking at that, going, "What is he playing at?" That was his time to stronghold the board and say, "You know what? Pull your finger out, sort it out, invest in the squad, improve the overall structure of the team, and actually win something." Because you can't tell me, Aston Villa have been to an FA Cup final more recently than us. Yeah, you can't tell me that we're not a bigger club than Aston Villa, or that we haven't got ambition. We've just built a multi-million-pound stadium that's absolutely incredible, by the way, and that's going to be lucky to see European football again 2 years from now for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think wasn't it 1.2 billion or something that stadium cost?
Yeah,
You know,
it is breathtaking, by the way. If anyone's ever been to it, it is absolutely breathtaking. It's incredible.
I went there, yeah. Norwich away in the cup. Not a
Oh,
bad.
did you go with Rob when you knocked
No,
him?
no, I didn't go with Rob. I went with my dad. But yeah,
Oh, fair enough. Because actually, it's funny because I went to the Middlesbrough game the round before, and then I was offered tickets for the Norwich game. I was like, you know what? Nah, it's fine. It's cold. I'm gonna rush late from work. It'll be fine. I'm not gonna go. And I was watching it after work actually, and when it went to penalties, I was like, you just know Spurs are not gonna win it. And then Tim Krul and his bottle
to be
is
honest, yeah. Usually, I've had bad. I've watched Norwich. I think that was the first time I've watched Norwich win a penalty shootout. And like, so, but obviously the fact that we've probably got a keeper like Tim Krul, who's just
yeah, he's got
lives and breathes of penalty shootouts, that probably helps.
yeah, it's crazy. But the problem is the issue I have is as you've said as a Norwich fan, that stadium is absolutely fantastic. But what is the point in that stadium
Yeah,
if it can't see the greatest games of European nights? What's the point in it?
yeah, and that's probably what players like Kane and Son will be thinking. And I'm sure it's been a difficult year for Daniel Levy. He obviously that stadium's there, thinking like you're thinking, oh, NFL, huge events. A lot of Tottenham's revenue is going to be made back from that using that stadium. And obviously with the pandemic, ticket sales have been non-existent, and so obviously quite depressing. Do you think? Is there some sympathy with Daniel Levy for you as a Tottenham fan, or is there not?
I've backed Daniel Levy for years. I've always said there was a video, a small like 40-minute documentary he did when we had plans announced for the stadium.
Yeah,
And you could see he's a Spurs fan. His dad and his granddad took him to games when he was a kid. You could see the love he had for the club. You could see his vision. That's fair enough, but we've had the stadium 2 years now. There's no you don't go, oh, I'm going to knock down my house and rebuild it and forget to buy food to eat while you're building a house. Buying and selling players and improving the squad is common sense. Everyone knows it has to happen. Even Manchester City, who have said they're not going to go and sign a replacement striker this year, and they're going to play Gabriel Jesus as their main striker, are still probably going to bring in players in the January transfer window, in the summer rather. It doesn't. It's an important, crucial. You as a Norwich fan will know full well just how important a good transfer window is. It's imperative, and
absolutely.
don't plan on building a project like that without it. So for the first year, and while we were at Wembley, I had sympathy. I understood it. Even with the pandemic now, Spurs are now officially the 10th richest club in Europe. The other
Yeah,
nine in front of us win league titles or win Champions Leagues or win Europa Leagues every season. It's not acceptable anymore.
yeah. So you obviously the trophy thing, definitely you're pointing out there. We get back to Kane now, I guess, and we've spoken about Levy. Is there like a degree of control that Levy has? People have spoken about how ruthless he is as a negotiator, as you mentioned as well. Kane signed that 6-year contract. I'm guessing is like about three years left of it, something like
Uh,
that.
yeah, I think it's 2 years this summer. I think it's
Oh
two
yeah.
years
So
this.
he's got some control because he's under contract, so he can demand a big fee. I mean, do you think? I remember back in the past, you've sold players like Bale. He was a huge one. I think before that, maybe Berbatov as well.
Yeah, those are quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think this is going to be really good? Do you think they'll, if you did sell Kane, there would be a lot. It would be with a lot of money. Does that maybe give you a little more confidence, or are you all just feeling a bit annoyed by it?
The thing is, even if we were to, because bearing in mind I think people massively underrate the pool Champions League football has, with the uncertainty around Jose and the certain players' futures and whatever. Even if we were to be given £500 million for Kane, which would never in a million years happen, and by the way, is not what I think is realistic. But even if we were given that amount of money, I would still have no faith whatsoever that Steve Hitchin could scout the right players. I look at the amount of money we've wasted. We spent £40 million on Ryan Sessegnon and Clark, and Sessegnon may well be Spurs potential, but Clark isn't going to be. No disrespect to him. I think he's a great player, got a great work rate, but he's a championship player at best at the
Yeah,
moment.
I always found that fee a bit strange at the time. So I remember, I think it was when Clark first burst on the scene because I was watching Championship football. Norwich were in that league a couple of seasons ago, and it was when he burst on the scene for Leeds, scored a great goal against Derby, and looked really good in that game. I think it was. I might be wrong, but he didn't do a lot else. And you looked at the fees that other players in the Championship were going for, like Lloyd Kelly. He was a great at Bristol City. He was going for like the 10 million fee. Jamal Lewis, obviously for us, a title-winning left back, played every time in the Championship. He went for a bit more than 10 million, but around that. Clark was never really if he was a regular for Leeds, I could understand it, but he wasn't really. He had flashes of brilliance, but it just looked like you were trying to bag that potential, and it hasn't really paid off.
The thing is, it's difficult with English players, right? Because if you don't get them really early before they fully break out, you're going to be paying 40, 50 million for them just because of the English quota that clubs have to meet and the fact that Man City can go and splash that kind of money on an English player to sit on their bench. So I understand it from that point of view, but it's not that I went through it the other day, just casually in the evening because Spurs were doing my nutting. And you look at the transfers we've made, and since Steve Hitchen was appointed in the summer of 2017, all bar maybe three players have not been worth half the money, if not a third of the money we paid for them. And if I fail at my job for that long, and I'm not the aim of a club, you have two options. You either want players to come in to be first team quality, or the potential to be first team quality, or players you can sell on for a profit in the future. They're the three things you look for when you're selling players, depending on what your club's ambitions are.
Yeah,
How can Spurs not do all three of them for almost 4 years now and still have the same sporting director? bearing in mind the guy before him scouted the likes of Harry Kane, scouted like Kyle Walker for the price that we got for him, which was like 5 million at the time. The amount of players that Moussa Dembele, another one, the amount of players that the sporting director before Steve Hitchens scouted and brought in was fantastic. And that sporting director, with a bit more support and financial support, I have no doubt we could have gone and brought in some of the best players in European football, at least at their beginning level. And after that, you just got to see what happens. I think Daniel Levy wanting to appoint someone he's close to, because there's rumours he's got quite a close relationship with Steve Hitchen, even before he was at Spurs. I just think we're in a position where he'd rather secure someone he knows a job rather than someone who's actually going to put Spurs first. And ultimately, what's the point in having a scout if they're going to scout you a player? If Norwich was scouted a player and someone said, yeah, that player's 20 million, and the Norwich will want to spend 1 million, eventually you're going to realise that scout's not going to be useful for you because he's not working in your budget. If Spurs are willing to invest more in the transfer market, what's the point in having a sporting director who can get the best players at a little bit more than what you're willing to pay for, when you can have someone who can get players for absolute bargains who are never going to amount to anything? And that in itself just shows why we're not acting like a big club. We're not behaving like a big club in the market, in our structure. The only thing we've got going for us is our stadium. And that's going to be useless if there are no fans in it, which, as you pointed out, the fans not being in the stadiums this year, best believe if there'd have been fans in the stadiums this year, I think we'd have complete and utter carnage. Because they'd actually be able to voice the issues that majority of fans have.
Yeah. So if we go, man, I think you've brought some great points there about the whole scouting and everything. If we go back to Kane for a bit, there are some sort of rumours about the club. So whether it's obviously City are looking for a new striker, United, I've always wondered if United would ever make the move for him. I don't know if they might this time.
I always believed the last probably 4 years, I always believed if any club was going to sign him, it'd be Man United. Because you look at some of the biggest names that have gone there, Wayne Rooney, English, Alan Shearer was very close to a move to Man United, didn't go. Yes, okay, he finished his career with a Premier League title, but if you asked him, would you have taken 2 Champions Leagues and countless Premier League titles over that one Premier League, over playing for Newcastle, he might have thought about it differently. So I always believed that if Kane was going to go to a club, it would be someone like Man United, someone who are the biggest name in English football ultimately. They're a big club with rich history. It's not like he's going to a Man City that have just come out of nowhere, or a Chelsea who, while they're a club that have history, you can make the argument to say that their real success has come after huge investment. I believe that Man United would be the club for Kane. However, I just don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's got enough pedigree to attract a player like Harry Kane. If he's going for guaranteed trophies, you don't leave a winner who's not being backed to go to someone who hasn't won anything with backing.
Yeah.
So for me, it was always going to be Manchester City if he was going to leave to go in England. Chelsea, I think after the way we behaved with Modric and the fact that we sold him for less to Real Madrid over Chelsea, I think Chelsea are out of the equation. I think if it was going to be one, it'd be Manchester City. The best manager in the world, the most creative football, the most goals scored, the most possession. It's the perfect fit for him on every level. And he has a chance to break Shearer's record.
Yeah.
But Daniel Levy says he won't sell to English clubs. So
yeah, and this is the thing. Obviously, your manager Pochettino is now at PSG. It wouldn't surprise me if they were thinking about Kane, and obviously finances. They don't have any trouble with them, do they? But in terms of, I think the whole Premier League record and the fact he wants to stay and play until he's 40 or something like that, I can just see him seeing his career in England. So, and City do obviously have huge finances. If they really wanted to get something done, I still think there'll be. So they'll be careful. They won't want to overspend, so it will be difficult negotiations. And obviously the Erling Haaland rumours as well. Will he go to the Premier League? We'll have to see about who else is.
I think as well with Haaland, if you look at the rumours of him wanting of Ronaldo, his agent, talking about £1 million a week, I think instantly if you're Man City, you rather go for the English man, the sort of Haaland's agent and his dad have already said that if he moves to a club for a big fee from Dortmund, he's planning on running down his deal rather than accepting reasonable fees to move on. So if you're Manchester City, Harry Kane's a less of a risk in that sense. He's done it in the Premier League already, so you haven't got that worry at all. And I think as well, Kane's always spoken about his daughters. You know, he's got two daughters and a son, and he's always said that his foundation's in England and that moving abroad has never really been attractive to him in that sense because he wants his girls to grow up around their family ultimately, whether that's grandparents, close family, even friends that Kate's developed over the time that they've been together. He's always said that England's where he wants his foundations to be. So I think it would have to be make or break for him in his career if he was going to go to a Real Madrid or Barcelona. I think the only other one that you could make the argument for that could push is somewhere like Bayern Munich. But even then, right now, with the former Lewandowski, they have no need for
I was
him.
going to say you get adding to that would be a bit of a just considering how good their main striker is. I mean,
Yeah, it's counterproductive to spend that kind of money on a player who, you've got someone just as good as, if not slightly better.
I think that's probably why like Tottenham have struggled to bring other world class strikers in with someone like Harry Kane. It's been difficult to maybe if you're talking to someone like who's a main striker at their club tearing up in Europe and saying, "Oh, we've got this guy," they might be thinking, or maybe I'll stay away from that.
Yeah, we've had issues with that in the past. We've had Vincent Janssen, Roberto Soldado. I think personally, Vinicius this season's been fantastic. I really rate him, and I hope, especially if Kane goes, that we bring him in because his work rate and his ethics and the way he's adapted to a culture and things, especially with the pandemic as well, has been fantastic. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we went and splashed any money we get for Kane on Championship players, which just for the hope that one of them becomes fantastic. And then if I look at it realistically, I don't think Spurs will get more than 120 million. I think we should be demanding 150 upwards.
Yeah.
I think 115 to 120 will be our maximum we'll get.
Yeah, especially in this pandemic sort of market where everyone's going to be really post-pandemic market. It probably will be. So people will still. I know a few years ago there were these. There was almost teams that were looking to have that push of Champions League football, that final push. Like Alexis Sanchez, huge wages went to United. Hazard went to Real Madrid. Griezmann went to Barcelona. And all these players quite in their later 20s, I'd say,
Yeah.
going for these huge wages. I mean, would you say maybe I'm going to thinking of those clubs involved there: Barcelona, Real Madrid, Kane. Would you say he's got a chance of maybe going to Spain, or is that again what you're saying abroad out of
No,
the question?
I still think his priority would be England. And obviously, I think the club's priority isn't. But if you actually, there was an article I read actually yesterday, and if you actually look at some of his close family, they're saying that he doesn't want to leave Spurs. He's doing this as a last final ultimatum of, please invest. I want to win here. Please let me win here. But ultimately, if you're not going to, and you're adamant you're not going to, it reminds me very much of the Robin van Persie situation at Arsenal. He walked into the Arsenal board the summer window before he left. He walked into the Arsenal board and said, right, what are our plans for the summer this year? What are we going to go and sign? What are we going to invest in? And they went, now we're just happy with top four again. He said, no, we need to go for the Premier League. And they said, well, if you want to go to win the Premier League, go somewhere else. And that's when he went to Man United and won the Premier League the year after. And I feel like we're in a very similar position with Kane now, where if he walks into that board and goes, right, Jose, what do you believe it's going to take to win the Premier League? Board, are you going to give him this? And if they turn around and say no, then he's going to look at it and say, well, what more do you want me to do? You can't hold me hostage. But if it's not even like we've got like an Eddie Howe or Scott Parker or someone inexperienced that we're saying, oh, Kane wants to win the Premier League with. We've got a manager who's been there, who's done it, who's held a defensive record in the Premier League that probably will never be broken. That doesn't just go away overnight. Your tactical understanding doesn't just disappear.
Out PFA Player of the Year, like stats up there with the best it maybe ever been. His goal scoring stats this season.
Hey, yeah, exactly. So you add those kind of things in. We actually fix the defense and bring in winning experience, ruthlessness, an ability to players that are going to demand the best from each other and physically call each other out when they're not getting it. Then yeah, this squad's capable of winning the league with those additions. But right now, I watched. It was like the final 2 minutes against Man United. I watched a replay of it the other day.
Yeah,
And Aurier was literally just stood there, standing still. We're at that point. It was 3-1. At that point when he was doing that, it was 2-1, and he was just walking. And
yeah.
it's you're. I would much rather at this point give some of our youth academy players a chance and see them give 110% at half the ability than see players with bags of ability give no effort at all.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I think that's definitely again it's a different story. But Norwich went down to the then went down from the Premier League in the 15-16 season, and in the 16-17 season we were outside the playoffs, performing really not putting in the effort, and we had one of the highest wage bills in the Championship, other than Newcastle and Villa. And the players, it was just some awful performances. Obviously, Alex Neil then went, and when Farke came in, high earners then left. It was like, right, you're either playing for this club, or if you don't care, we'll just sell you. Even though the fans at the time got angry with some of the names that left, it was probably the right thing to do in the long run. I think that's, again, if probably the first thing on whoever's managing or whoever's in charge in the summer, whether it's Mourinho or someone else, their aim will be, right, just let's sort out this playing squad. It needs a revamp.
I think half of these players as well. If you were to walk up to some of these players right now and you say, right, I'm not going to pay you a penny for the next season, would you still play at Spurs and give 110%? Majority of their answers no. And if that's their answer, then there's the door. Lucas Moura, I've had the privilege of meeting him. He's an absolutely lovely bloke. And if with the way he's played this season, if I turn around to Lucas and said, you're going to be on 10 grand a week for the entire next season, do you still want to stay at Spurs? He'd still give 110%. Same with Kane. Same with Son. Same with Højbjerg. Bar that, maybe Reguilon as well. Ndombele is getting there for me. There are still some times where I'm like, maybe you could just put a little bit more in. Other than those players, the majority of players, nah, I'm out the door. And if you're not willing to give 110% passion when money's not the equation and money's the only thing keeping you, then there's the door. And I think that's the issue with the likes of Eric Dyer and Dele Alli, and maybe even Doherty has gone to his head a little bit this year. I just think too many players are in it for the paycheck, and they know if they get sold, they're not earning half what they're on now. And that's the problem.
As I said, yeah, first thing will probably be this summer. It's like, right, let's fix the squad. Obviously, after you loan Oliver Skip to us for another season, but
we spoke about this actually. I hate to plug it, but I did a podcast with Callum and Rob, another Norwich fan, on my podcast last week. Thank you. And we were talking about it, and I said that Oliver Skip for Norwich, the effort and the work rate he's put in, the distance he's covered for Norwich this season, ridiculous. You look at it. You look at it now. He'd kill to play for Spurs. Spurs are the club he grew up supporting. He grew up very close to White Hart Lane. He's one of those players that would give 110% and play for Spurs for nothing if you gave him the opportunity to. So how are we putting players in that aren't giving an ounce of effort when there are players like that? And let's be realistic. It's not like Skip's a downgrade on Sissoko or, Winks even, who is a Spurs fan as well. It's not like he's a downgrade on those players. If anything, he's an upgrade, ability and effort-wise. So
yeah, obviously, yeah, to the Championship, even as a Norwich fan who's loving everything at the moment, it's a head screwed on. Championship is a different kettle of fish, obviously.
yeah,
but he's mentally very switched on. He's really got a winning mentality. He's very switched on for his age. I mean, yeah, I think it'd really benefit him to come back to Norwich next year. But
I completely agree, and I'd love our squad to be in an opportunity where we can say, you know what, give him to Norwich, give him the mainstay, let him be almost a captain's style voice on the pitch for Norwich, and allow him to keep Norwich up, and then come back into Spurs with that year of Premier League experience. I don't doubt the Championship for a second, and I think the Championship makes boys into men if they become the top tier footballers. You look at Harry Kane, who had several spells in the Championship, one miserably at Norwich.
Especially in the Prem with us, but yeah.
Yeah, so you look at the Championship and it turns some of the weakest players. Reece James has been fantastic for Chelsea.
Yeah.
And he was on loan in the Championship. So some of the best players that become the most physically fit, that become the most concentrated, the most focused, the most mature quicker, are those that spend time in the Championship. But Premier League experience is priceless. You look at our squad now, are we in a position to let a player like that, who's going to give everything for this club, off the back of a season he's had with Norwich, can we afford to let him go on loan? The answer is no. And that might even hinder his development in the long run, which is horrible to think about. But I'd give you half our squad on loan right now with the performances they've had this season.
I wouldn't say no to some really. I mean, you say Winks and Sissoko. I'm thinking, in my head, I'm thinking that's a World Cup winner and a Premier League standing midfielder. I mean, I wouldn't mind it.
It's crazy to think about it. Actually, there's Sissoko on the World Cup. I completely forgot about that. But yeah, it's really really difficult now because if you're sat if you're sat in the Spurs board, they're all going, oh, we've got Skip back next season. We don't need to sign a midfielder. And it's like, yeah, but what good does that do him? Maybe playing, sort of 30 minutes a week when he could be playing 90 minutes every single week under the most amount of pressure. Watch him become an absolute gem and then bring him back into the first team. But it's one of the many things that's completely wrong about the way my club's run. So, and also as well, if you're Kane, as we mentioned so much, that the effort levels of other players, if you're Harry Kane looking at that, you're not even as much annoyed about the lack of investment or lack of ambition as you are just the lack of effort from the people that sit there in interviews and go, yeah, we want to win trophies. We're an ambitious club. We're determined to be successful. And Kane will see it week in and week out and see the lack of effort in training and see the lack of effort in the games and not, he simply him and Son carry us and Højbjerg carry us. Yeah. Because they're the ones that they're the engine. They put the effort in when everyone else is just there for existence. And it's just not acceptable. And let's be realistic. If you were a player, would you want to be part of a club where everyone just thinks they can jump on the train and put no effort in at all and still get success? You wouldn't want to.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, you'd want a lot more than that, and you want to see your team trying every week. But I think we've got quite a bit. I think what I'll wrap up this is the simple question. Obviously, we've been talking, will Harry Kane leave? Do you see him staying? Do you see him as a Tottenham Hotspur player next season?
See, I've answered this already today, and the more I think about it, the more I don't know. If I break it down for logic, I'd say yes. My head says yes because there's no one's going to pay the funds ultimately, and I don't believe he's the kind of person to force his way out. My heart says no, he's already gone.
Yeah, I think Harry Kane will still be a Tottenham player in the summer. It might be tight. I think there'll be clubs in for him, but as I pointed out, Daniel Levy's negotiations and the fact that Kane is so professional anyway, I can see him just getting on with it and wanting to stay in England. Obviously dependent on how. I mean, if Spurs completely crumble for the rest of the season, it might be like he's actually thinking, okay, maybe I should, but we don't know yet.
I think it is largely dependent on who puts the bid in and how much. I think if Man City put the bid in, it'll be a case of the same thing that happened with Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker says, I want that club. They've already shown interest. How much do you want? Man City, this is how much you want. They'll bid it and it'll be done and over. I think if a foreign club comes in and it's a low ball offer, I don't think he'll go. But as I say, my heart is saying his head's already gone now. So
brilliant. Okay, cool. So thanks for watching, guys. Obviously, please subscribe if you're new. It just helps the channel grow. And obviously, subscribe to David as well. He's got a YouTube channel and he's got a podcast, which he regularly does. I'll leave links to all that and his Twitter in the description. But it's been great.
Being ranting about Spurs and giving a live commentary of our terrible performances to the end of the season.
Yeah, it's been really insightful. And I always like having fans of, I want to do this more. I want to have fans of other clubs on and all that and to speak about, what their season's like, because it's just interesting to get the insight. And I feel like it's been balanced. Like you've had a rant, but really we've looked at you've had the rant, and we've had a look realistically at what could happen. And I think it's just been it's been great having you on. And
I try and avoid ranting, but I do appreciate, as I say, coming on and it's lovely to have a chat with you as well. Obviously, we spoke about Norwich for yourself during the week, and it was good to see you being unbiased on that. So I try my best to keep somewhat level-headed, even though Spurs drive me crazy. I try my best to keep level-headed.
When you get angry, I know that. Great. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the future.
Take care.